What's up, everyone? It's Travis and John here with another intro to a podcast. Today we had Craig Hanaumi. I think I just said that
pretty
right.
good, man.
I think I just said it right.
I think you said that right.
We had a little bit of practice because this is our second intro because we messed up on the first one. But
practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. So, but for today's episode, like I said, we have Craig, who is a purple belt under Henry Gracie. He is also a Bellevue police officer. So his ideas and aspect and story behind Jiu Jitsu is a little bit different. He brings some amazing stories to the table. His attitude, positivity is just infectious. Absolutely. He does a lot of community outreach. And if you want to follow him on Instagram, it's Craig Hanaumi. H-A-A or H-A-M-A-U N-I?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure
we'll have it in the
link
show.
it.
Yeah, we'll have it in the show notes. But he's a great guy. This episode is so fun. His stories are hilarious. We haven't laughed this hard in a long time. We asked him what transitions better to policing, whether gi or no gi, and the answer is hilarious. All of us was thinking the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's a good one. John, how'd you like it?
I liked it, man. I thought it was a lot of fun. You know, it's kind of like a blast from my past too. Just, I think we must be close to the same age.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I liked hearing it. We got an invite to go roll at the old police station.
I'm super excited about
I've always wanted to try that. I thought I'd have to be in cuffs, so that's a nice opportunity.
He said he could bring us in cuffs. I was like, I want to show up in the police car, handcuffed, and then we start rolling.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
So, but it's a whole lot of fun, guys. He does a lot of, like we said, does a lot of community outreach. Especially, he's a skateboarder, so he uses skateboarding and jiu-jitsu to help reach the community around him. So it's amazing to hear stories and positivity, especially with the mindset that a lot of people have about police nowadays. It's very, very refreshing to hear his side of the story. And also, crazy story is he is on duty in uniform during this interview. It caught us off guard when he first showed up. He's downstairs in the police station in their like jiu-jitsu area. I was like, are you on duty right now?
And it was a little weird. I recognized him as soon as he started talking.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was like, hold on.
How'd you recognize him?
From the seminar a couple years ago at the Des Moines Justice Center.
Yeah, it's crazy how, once again, we talk about in the episode how things come full circle, and because of jiu-jitsu, man. Like, who would have thought, you know? And he has some great stories from skateboarding and jiu-jitsu and experiences because of it. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, especially if you're a skateboarder that does jiu-jitsu. This is going to be the episode for you.
Mike,
Keegan. I think Keegan, you know, no one name drop, but it's fun, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much. Remember, some housekeeping things. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, and then leave comments down below in your review. It helps us greatly to get discovered more and ranks us up in the iTunes. And then also, like our Facebook page, go to elbowstight.com to join the email list, and then, you know, just we're Elbows Tight Podcast everywhere, Elbows Tight Pod. So make sure you guys follow us and hit us up and let us know how we're doing. It's greatly appreciated. So, but John, you got anything else?
Nope. Listen and give us a review.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you guys think. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host, Travis and John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing a whole lot better because my portfolio looks great with cryptocurrency. We were just talking about it beforehand.
Yeah,
you know?
right when you got on, we were like, how's that Doge doing?
It's like the simple things in life now. So,
you guys got to educate me on that one.
Yeah, it's quite the thing right now, especially because Elon Musk is about to be on SNL tomorrow night, and everyone's expecting like some cryptocurrency to blow up because of it. So, but without further ado, we have a very special guest today. We have our friend Craig Hanaumi. Right? Did I say it right?
Hanaumi.
Gosh, dang it.
How do you get that wrong? Hanaumi.
I'm sorry. My last name is 4 letters, and people butcher it all the time. Like, I'm like, I don't even know how you mixed up some letters. You added some in there. I don't even understand how that happens. He's my best friend, and he still messes it up daily.
I do it on purpose, though.
So we have, like I said, we have Craig today. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good, you guys. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come in and talk to us about some jiu-jitsu, man.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, so If you could just give a little bit of background of who you are, how you started jiu-jitsu and whatnot.
Yeah, Craig Hanaumi, born and raised on Oahu, and I'm in law enforcement with the Bellevue Police Department right now for 15 years, and 3 years before that, I worked for the Honolulu PD on Oahu, and um, been doing jiu-jitsu on and off for about 12 years now, and I'm a purple belt under Henry and Hidon Gracie.
Oh, nice.
You know, you look familiar. Were you at a seminar they had at the Des Moines Training Center for what is the you do it all the time? The Dar Seminar they had there? Do you know?
What are you talking about in Burien or?
In man, I always think of it just as the Des Moines Training Center, the big police one they have there. It's like a huge...
We go to those. Yeah, we've had training sessions over there before, but I know it's been a while since I've been down there.
I think it was 2 years ago when I went to one, but I wasn't
what
sure.
What was it?
It was the Dar Seminar that the brothers did.
And,
oh no, yeah, we helped set that up. I helped set that up.
That's why I think I saw you there.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
Positive.
Yeah. No, that was the cool part about that seminar was that seminar with the brothers. First of all, they hardly ever do seminars together. Yeah, they're all so busy. They have different schedules, but not only did they do a seminar together for that one, but I think that was a Saturday. That was 10 years to the day when I attended the first
Didn't they mention that? I could have sworn they mentioned it when I was there. That's why I'm like, hold on, I'm starting to put it together now.
He's a little slow. He's got 3/4 of a brain. So
yeah. But I was like, hold on. You look familiar. And now I'm like, I was putting it together. I was like, all right.
Yeah, no, that was a fun day because of that. And it's always cool to have them up here and in our backyard. And that was a fun one. That was a good one.
Yeah, they're great. They're good. They're way bigger in person.
Yeah, they're enormous.
I was like, they're like, if you wanted to think of like the right body to be built for it, they were like perfect. I was like, man, monsters.
Yeah, I was hitting everyone with the darts before that seminar because it was about the time we all started jiu-jitsu. And I was hitting people left and right with darts, and I came back, and I haven't been able to hit another one since. I'm like, they foiled my plan.
They messed it up. Oh, no.
So what got you into jiu-jitsu, Craig? Just, like a generic jiu-jitsu question. What got you into jiu-jitsu? Because you've been a cop longer than you've been a practitioner. Was it police force that got you into it?
Yeah. I mean, growing up in Oahu, there's a lot of martial arts, right? From its proximity to Asia. I grew up getting my parents were really cool about letting me try stuff, so I did like kung fu, karate, and kempo karate, and then they exposed me to a lot of sports too: basketball, soccer, skateboarding, of course. But the jiu-jitsu came a couple years into my my work, and it was at a gym that was connected to House and Gracie, and whose presence on the islands was what probably started jiu-jitsu back in the 80s, I think, mid 80s. And I had a funny experience with that as my very first one. And I've shared it before, but essentially it was a training, like a typical training class. I had gone in because I was interested in the benefits, and they paired me up with one of the regular students, and we did our typical outline of stuff, drill, warm-up drill, specific positional stuff, and then sparring. And then I did the round, I lasted the whole class, and I knew very minimal amounts of anything. The academy that we go to in Honolulu does cover things like the guard and some simple mount escapes, but not too much deeper than that. And back then we could actually use the neck restraint, so we could put people to sleep, which is, big neutralizer, right? When you have that on your toolbox. But yeah, we finished the class. I didn't get submitted during my first round with my training partner, who was super nice and helpful. So I was feeling very proud of myself. And then I reflected, and I was like, well, I was basically in his close guard the whole round for 5 minutes. And I didn't do anything to him, of course. He didn't do anything to me. And then I reflected on that afterwards, kind of initially happy that I didn't get submitted, but kind of disappointed because I was stuck, right? I was stuck technically in a position where I was on top of him. And even though we couldn't punch, it was just kind of like, man, I couldn't really do anything either. And then that's when I asked him how long he's trained. And he told me a couple of years. And I was like, very good. That's awesome. How old are you? And he goes, 13. And that was a big a blow, because at that age I was about late 20s, and I could probably I was the strongest I ever was as far as like lifting weights and stuff, and I felt like as fit as I ever was in aerobic endurance, and this 13-year-old kid was holding me down in his close guard. So that was my first, and then I didn't really do any follow-up after that. Until the brothers course in 2008, when I was working for Bellevue PD already. I got approval for a training request I did just off of Googling Jiu Jitsu and police, because I still wanted to train. I just needed the right course and the right, I guess, starting point, introduction. And that course was it for me. And ever since then, it has been a very cool hobby that is work applicable for us, So I'm super lucky about that. Really, really fortunate to have that.
Yeah, what's funny is we joke about the first time that we ever did jiu-jitsu too, and I always say I come from like a CrossFit fitness background, and the first time I ever did a 5-minute roll, I was like, I would literally die on the street, bro. Like if anyone even had like remote amount of training, I'd be dead. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like pressuring, the white belt mentality, just trying to pressure and like crush people, but I was so dead by the end of that first 5 minutes. I was like, well, this time to go back to the drawing boards.
I think it's a surprise for most people, even super fit people, right? Because 5 minutes is not a long time, but if you go 5 minutes at 100%, that's extremely long, and it's not even sustainable, right? And for a brand new person, whatever their background is, if they don't have any grapple experience, they will expend every ounce of energy during that time frame, and then they'll be like you mentioned, right, unable to do another round after that. And it's funny how that changes as we progress, and not necessarily because of fitness, but also just because of the energy expenditure, right? Knowing how to modulate, and I think that's a huge piece of it as well. But yeah, it's funny to get a fit person inside the gym, and I mean, we have a lot of applicants too come through, and occasionally they have fitness backgrounds like CrossFit, like you said, but it's always neat to have those guys with are paired up with our in-house kind of jiu-jitsu guys, and then they have the moment where they're like, wow, my bench press or my burpee is not saving me right now. And
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can clean and jerk 315. Like, how does that? I could bicep curl 45s. Like, how is this not applying right now?
Yeah, I was gonna tell him. One of my good friends, I've just got him to start going to jiu-jitsu with us. I think he's been to 3 classes now, and he's one of the base police officers on our base. And I've talked to him before. They do, he was telling me about like their fight to survive drill they do, and a little bit of the hands tactics they do. And I was like, all right, well, let's see how we go in the class. And I haven't got him to do the rolls yet, but just doing the hour and a half or 2 hours of the class, he's exhausted. Yeah. And we were just talking about it yesterday. He's like, you're not even breathing hard. And I was like, man, we're 3 years in. This is nothing. I'm like, I was like, just stick around for open mat after. He's like, not yet.
No,
but I watched him with what was it, like 10-minute rolls we had to do in class the other day. And man, he was locked up as tight as he could be holding the guy. And I was like, oh, you just got to loosen up.
Yeah. It's so hard, right? That's, I think, one of the hardest pieces of the art is, because it's not a technique. It's just knowing when to go and when to not go. Yeah. And you can't really teach somebody that. They have to know themselves through experience, right? And it takes time to understand that piece of it, which is not, like I said, a visible actual technique. It's the pace is just something you get from just consistent training eventually, hopefully.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think jiu-jitsu, a lot of people see, I talked about this on with a friend, but I think jiu-jitsu, a lot of people see jiu-jitsu as a lot of hard techniques, right? When they don't understand the soft techniques that come with it. And a lot of it is mentality, energy expenditure, right? Like knowing when to move, when to not to move, right? And there's like applicable technique, like physical technique, like an Americana or whatnot. But there's a lot of mental side of it that I don't think, especially when you first start, you have no idea. No idea, right?
They're trying to kill me.
Yeah. Everything is life or death, right? And I'm sure you can attest to this, being a police officer, but having that capability of knowing when to turn it on and turn it off is a huge advantage to anyone, you know what I mean? And especially when you're on the mat or in a situation where you're like, look, I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about you breaking through my guard, because I know what I can do to get back to where I want to be. Like it's it's like Roy Dean talks about. He's like, it feels like a superpower to someone that doesn't understand. They're like, how did you know I was gonna do that? It's like, well, it's you just do it more enough, and then there it goes.
Yeah, it's like the cheat code.
Yeah, down, right,
sure.
left. So do you feel like you mentioned that you have like a very athletic background? I skateboarded growing up also, and I feel like skateboarding has helped out quite a bit, to tell you the truth, like my balance and my base in jiu-jitsu. Do you feel like your skateboarding background kind of helped you out a little bit?
Well, first of all, I do not have an athletic background.
Oh,
I got exposed to a lot of sports. That's what I said. So don't get it twisted.
That's me too. That's me.
I said I got exposed to a lot of sports. My parents let me try a lot of stuff. That in no way means that I have any athleticism in anything. And to prove that, I think I just go back to my high school. I mean, I didn't do any. I wasn't on any varsity team. I was in the varsity cross country, but cross country didn't have cuts. So that doesn't, to me, that didn't, like, well, I would have been on it no matter what. And I was in the band room the whole time in high school. So I wasn't even a sports person until after I graduated and went to college. But skateboarding helps. It's the kinesthetic awareness or proprioception, right? Balance. I mean, huge components of jiu-jitsu. And I mean, I don't know how to compare it to me not having skateboarding, because I started when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. But there's definitely a balance component for sure, right? As we all know, for the art. And I don't know, it's kind of neat to see people who do, because how many people, there's I know Crone Gracie skates, and Brian Ortega, at least casually, right? Like cruising, carving. There was somebody else who was, I seen somebody do like kickflips. Anyway, there's people who skate. Like there's a bunch of other people who are not as, I guess, high profile people that integrate. I think surfing a little bit more, right? Because of Brazil and connection to the ocean and just the climates that jiu-jitsu is typically practiced in, kind of a natural connection to that. But there's definitely parallels to knowing how to move your body and keep your body balanced in both.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So when you got bit by the bug of jiu-jitsu, did you try to like pull as many of your friends in as possible? I was just
thinking about that, like,
because we do the same. We try to get everyone to come and do it. We're like, just try it. Or did you kind of get bit with the same bug and wanted more people to get exposed with you?
Yeah, and I mean, especially in the beginning, because my initial beginning of my journey was without a regularly seen in-person black belt. Like I didn't have that, so I would have to rely on. I mean, I just brought people in here and coworkers, and it was easier when there were new hires because they're recruits in the academy and they enjoyed that kind of training, because they were part of their testing was pieces of mock scenes and scenarios where they might have to arrest somebody who's fighting them. And luckily we have a few coworkers here who train too, and other people. I mean, I think I didn't have the right lens to, because you have to be very careful about introducing people to the art if you want it to be long term, because you can just tell somebody, hey, lie down and I'm going to smash you, but they're not going to come back after that.
No, they will not.
I think the approach is real important if you want somebody to experience it and return. I mean, it cannot just be all 100% getting destroyed by somebody. And I think that's a hard balance, because you get the most appreciation for the art by feeling it, but if it's too much to one side, then no typical person is going to just be like, yeah, I want to feel that again, multiple times, which is kind of why there's just less people who do what we do. I mean, training wise, I think if a person's introduction, especially back in the early 80s, 90s, probably say some schools right now, it's not like there's no beginner class. There's just like one class, and you might get paired up with somebody who's been training for like 6-7 years, and you don't know what you're doing. And the first experience is I think of what makes a lot of people not want to do it, unfortunately. And so I don't know. I mean, if you want more training partners, I think it's in that person's best interest to get as much people liking it as possible. And sometimes that means not just, crushing them with a bunch of techniques and having
absolutely
them feel overwhelmed. So it's not easy though. It's very hard to do that.
I think that's why I like the intro seminars, like how we started with a seminar, It was very like basic, you know, there was no like real rolling, you know. That was a good way to go.
Yeah, our school is kind of unique because we started the school maybe coming up on 3 years ago, and everyone in the school besides the guy that's the owner was a white belt, and he was a 4-stripe blue belt, and now he's a brown belt. But so we all started the same exact level, which was a crazy experience. You know what I mean? Now that we look back on it, because very rarely do you get that experience of everyone starting on the same field, and then and it's the biggest thing that I tell people is like if when they show up, I'm like, you don't know what you're doing now, but I promise you, if you even show up 2 times a week for 4 or 5 months, you are going to see the biggest difference in yourself. It's not rapid, but 5 months is not a long time. If you just just come twice a week and be consistent, I promise you'll catch on super quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a cool introduction that you guys had. Not a typical typical format of learning from some black belt, and that was mine too. I didn't have that, so
I think we had one guy that you could tell he used to have a stripe on his white belt, and to us he was leagues ahead of us. We're like, did you see what he just did?
He would come in, and it was like one of the first classes. Cody's the gym owner, the brown belt now, and he's like, so does anyone have any grappling experience? And he looked at the kid, he's like, you have 1 stripe, so obviously you have a little bit. And in my head I was like, how do I get a stripe? Yeah. So how has your mentality changed in your jiu-jitsu game with the longer you've been in it? Because 12 years is a good amount of time.
Yeah, I think pacing myself that's the easiest way to summarize it. Pacing myself to extend my ability to keep doing this. And that was luckily I think the luxury I had was I started a little later, right? I started when I was already in my 30s, so early 30s, which is, like I said, a little bit past where I felt like I was my strongest and fittest, but definitely not the same as if I was like 17, 18. And I think that's a blessing to me, because I felt like if I started at that point in my life, knowing my mentality and all that, I think my body would be broken already if I had started when I was 17, 18, 19, because I wouldn't know how to modulate and take the gas pedal, take my foot off the gas. I would just be, well, I'm injured, I'll keep going and say, oh, I'm hurt today. That's all right. I'll just train through it. And that's how it was for other stuff like skateboarding, when I did basketball for fun. I mean, I could easily see that translating to this. And I don't think I would have been able to sustain that. My body just would tell me like, hey, you need to stop. And who knows how much more broken I would have been. So I look at it as a good thing that I didn't start when I was late teens or 20s or another age besides when I started, because I already had a perspective of, well, I'm at my physical peak right now, or I'm going plateauing right now. So I won't get any stronger. I won't get any fitter as far as like conditioning wise. My mile time is never going to get faster than what it is. It's only going to go down. So I better not. And plus I'm not a big person anyway, so I never go out muscle anybody. So I think those things combined made me have the perspective. Okay, I have to think if I want to keep doing this for the next whatever many years, I can't do like how the 21-year-old college student is doing. I can't do that. So
yeah, that's super relatable for you.
Yeah,
right?
I started when I was 39, so nice. It was already like past the plateau. And which it's tough to even think, because I'm still competitive. Sure. Sometimes I got to realize like I can be as competitive as I want, but that 20-year-old stud over there is just as competitive, and if he knows just as much as me, like it's a rough one. Yeah. But yeah, I've actually toned it down a bit. I only go 2-3 times a week tops. And now I'm limiting my rolls, where I used to do 5 or 6 after class. Now I'm like 2 or 3, and I call it good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you posted that video of Henner talking about Helio and how his victory was, just rolling, right? And that watching that video, I was like, man, that's a great mindset to have, is not holding yourself to the same standard throughout your entire life, because after a while, like you said, you're just not going to meet it. You're not going to be the fittest you ever were. You're not going to be the fastest you ever were. Sometimes you gotta accept the small victories in your rolling.
But you can get smarter.
Yeah. for sure.
Get more energy efficient.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's a cool. I mean, I got permission from Henry to record that because usually he gives these in between the lessons or at the end of the seminar. Like a lot of people, right? They start speaking on something and that topic. I didn't know he was going to talk about that, but I was like, wow, this is so good. I need to make sure it's cool with him, and then I'll try to edit it down to like a minute long thing. And yeah, I mean, just the idea that your definition of victory is allowed to change as time goes on. That's just such a profound way of looking at a lot of stuff, right? Not just jiu-jitsu, but having a perspective of a different mindset as you age for whatever. I mean, that's just such a healthier way to look at it. Yeah.
Everything evolves. That's just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So have you ever competed in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I competed at Blue Belt, different rule sets. Like they have huge tournaments up here, right? The Revolution was one. And they have a lot of other smaller tournaments. They have one called Proving Grounds here. My friend Lamont runs that one. It's a submission only. That's more my, I guess, suitable to my, I guess, style, if you want to call it that, because I don't really have good takedowns or anything like that. But and some sub only doesn't matter, right? So like, yes, I'll do like I'll connect to the person and just start and pull guard and just start working stuff. But yeah, it's good. I mean, I think that's a good barometer, right? To measure what you're doing. And I know Nate Orchard talks about a lot of that's, if you're going to do something and you can pull it off in competition, that's basically the highest level of verification that you can have that this thing works, because I did it against a guy that is not wanting me to do what I did to them. So there's definitely value in that. I don't know. I wouldn't say that you have to do it, or, I mean, shouldn't have to do anything if you don't want to do anything. It should be because of internal motivation. And I don't know, maybe when I'm 50, I'll do the 50-year-old, whatever they call it, a master's purple belt, whatever.
Executive,
super executive, master executive, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, I'm happy that I can still hang with people that's half my age, and that's my victory now, And so once in a while I might catch them, once in a while I might get caught, but I mean, at the end, like, who cares?
Like, agreed.
Doesn't matter.
So what was that first competition like? Were you like super nervous before you went out on the mat? Because I haven't competed yet. He has, so I'm always like intrigued on. I've competed in like other things, just not jiu-jitsu, and having like that mindset before you go out there. It's so intriguing to me, because some people see it as it's not that big of a deal, and then some people are like sweating bullets. What was it like for you?
For me, it was all right. I mean, there's lots of people there. Especially like white belt, blue belt. I mean, I don't even know how much people was in each bracket, each division, each weight class. It was probably like 24. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I was trying to think in my head, like, okay, how many matches would I have to do if I was gonna keep winning? Like, that's too much already. I have my cap at like 3-4 matches. That's it already. I'm good. But it was okay. And it was kind of funny because I remember one of them. Because I was not used to the points. I mean, I honestly didn't know what the points for positions were. Like, I went into it going in without like knowing the back is 4 and mount is 4 and guard pass. Like, I think there was one point in one of my matches where there was some kind of reversal, which, like I said, I didn't even know why, if it was points or not, but I ended up on top in guard. And then I think one of my friends who was on the sideline was telling me like, hey, whatever the time was, and that I'm up ahead or something. I don't know how I got ahead, because I'm not even keeping track of that. But then I was like, okay. And then from the open guard, I went for a footlock. And then it was like almost like the opposite advice of, what somebody would typically do, right? When you're like, oh, you're ahead in points right now. I was like, oh, let me potentially lose my top position, leave this person to sweep, and go for a submission. So
I like it.
I think to me, that's the better way to do it. Just, I mean, what the result is not really the end game of it. It's the experience. And, I mean, as long as you have fun, don't get hurt, and learn something, that's the victory. Because getting injured doing a thing that you're not getting paid for, and you might have to potentially lose money for if you can't go to work the next day or whatever it is. That's, as an older person now, I recognize like, man, that's a lot of risk, you know. And if you have a family, everything, right? He's like, oh, we're gonna go to the park, ride bicycles. Like, no, I have to stay home because I sprained my ankle from a competition, you know. And it's I think people who don't have any families, it's a little bit easier, right? And if there's no other responsibilities, like if somebody's going to school full time, right? Especially now, because you can just remote learn everything. It's like, whatever, sprain ankle, sprain whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But if you have to go to work and, you know, you can't have a black eye or something, then.
Yeah, and we went to work with those.
Yeah. One of our buddies, he's a purple belt, and he's in his probably mid-50s now. Mm-hmm. But he is one of the owners of iFly, or he works with iFly. Yeah. And one day, I don't know what, I don't remember. I blacked out, but I caught him with like a knee or something like that, and I felt really bad afterwards. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, I'm so sorry I did that. He's like, it's fine. I have a board meeting tomorrow. And I was like, oh no. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm so sorry. To your point too, because our professor actually the other night just talked about this. And he started off, he ended he you know, we got done with all our technique, and he ended the class with, you know, do you have any questions? And he's like, let's be honest here, guys. He's like, none of you are ever going to be a world champ. He's like, and that's okay. He's all like, I'm never going to be a world champ. He's like, I enjoy my 401k. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you don't have to train like a world champ. Like, you can be happy with coming to class, learning technique, getting a little bit of rolling in. He's like, not everything has to be 100%, and you're trying to go for the best ever. He's like, that's not who we are here, and that's not my mindset anymore. That shouldn't be yours if you don't plan on, you know, kind of competing, competitive, or like as a thing. And I was like, man, I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that. Like, so much weight off my shoulder.
Now I don't have to be a champion.
Yeah, and that's a great, you know, because I mean, from any school, right? The vibe and I guess the feel of the school, it comes from the top down, right? And I mean, if it was the opposite of that, without even explicitly saying it, you can feel it, right? You can tell if everybody in the room is. I mean, there's value in that when everybody's going for the kill all the time. I'm just not seeing that as a way to have a larger student body, because you're gonna have a small group of people who are of the same mindset, but it will kind of inadvertently exclude everybody else. And I don't know. I like that if a school has a wide variety of people who are not just trying to win stuff, you know. I mean, that's just, I think it's more reflective of just society in general, right? Not everybody is wanting to do that, and that's fine. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think when I first started jiu-jitsu, everyone always told us, like, you got to compete, you got to compete, you got to compete, and it's not necessarily to compete to win, but just to experience it. And I don't know, I see the value in competing too. I still want to compete. I'm just nervous to do it, to tell you the truth. Kind of like what you said is like, I don't want to get injured in the middle of it and then have to take off work or break something because I'm going against a 21-year-old kid that's like so amped up that he's finally getting to compete, and like, you know, those things make me really nervous, to tell you the truth. But it's nice when, like you said, when your black belt or higher, you know, are saying like, you don't worry about it, man. Like, if you want to just come do it, just come do it. It does relieve a lot of pressure, and you could easily just feel the room even more like relaxed in classes and whatnot. So
I can't wait for you to try it, because I'm gonna be there so I can watch.
He's just gonna want to.
No, I was nervous, but that was part of the reason why I did it. Is I don't like, you know, if something's gonna be a challenge, like if it's gonna make me nervous, then I'm gonna do it just so I get over it. Yeah. But and I think something else that helps with the pressure, like you didn't know about the points. I knew about them, but I didn't care about them. So when I went into it, the whole focus was just submissions. I didn't care about points. I didn't want to know about the points. So like, I think that's a good way to do it, because then you're not even worried about the points.
Yeah. No, that's good.
So when you were growing up and skateboarding, like I said, I love skateboarding. I was a huge skateboarder. What was the first trick that you learned that you're like, that was so legit? Like, you were so pumped when you learned the trick.
Well, I mean, got to be the ollie. I mean,
ollie.
The ollie is like what do you even compare that to? I don't even
shrimping.
Like, yeah,
it's a very basic thing, but everything kind of like builds from it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah. I guess that's kind of comparable. I don't think shrimping is that, because it doesn't take you several months to learn how to shrimp. To me,
That's true.
I would do it in couple days, couple classes. But yeah, the ollie was just if people who don't know, ollie is the trick where you're board, you push the tail down, the front goes up, and then you adjust your front foot to make the board go from diagonal to parallel to the ground, off the ground. And from that, knowing that unlimited amount of other variant tricks come out when you can do that one comfortably. And then then it's on. It's like, okay, now what can I ollie onto? What can I ollie over? What can I do like start to do kick flips, start to do pop shove-its, and it just never ends. I mean, that's the beginning foundation that's like jumping. I think ollie is like if a person can jump off the ground, say, oh, I can leave the earth and I can come back. Oh, now how high can I do it? Now how far can I do it? And it's the same. It's the same thing. You know, that was like the landmark of status. I think that's everybody who does, even people who don't skateboard, right? They understand terminology of stuff like, oh, can you kickflip? Or right. That's one of the most common questions from non-skateboarding people. And Tony Hawk did a funny thing about that, where he was driving around and filming himself stopping at parks or watching people skate and yelling at them to request a kickflip.
Yeah.
They don't even know who he is, right? Like, it's this guy asking me to kickflip. And then when they do it and they get it, then he gives them like a board or something like that. It's super cool. But yeah, I grew up with that generation of skateboarders, watching those guys, the Bones Brigade.
Yeah.
Mid 80s, Back to the Future 1, and Search for Animal Chin, Paul Peralta, Future Primitive, that whole, the Bones Brigade, Mike Vallely,
Man, I remember even when I was a kid, Mike Vallely was like, he was obviously towards the end of his career as a skateboarder, but he still was making videos with like Element and stuff like that. And I remember watching the video of him taking on the like 3-4 guys in the parking lot. Yeah. And I remember that was like my first exposure to Mike Vallely. I was like, this dude is a savage, man. Like, he's just beating people up in the streets.
Yeah, there's a video of him beating up 4 people at one time. One after, like, knocking out each one individually after the other. And you know what the coolest thing about that is, I have a Mike Vallely story, because I grew up watching him, and there's a video he made in like '89 called Public Domain, where he basically starts in his house like, hey, you guys want to go skate? And he like gets his board, he jumps onto a rail from like running start, does a board slide down the rail, and then they're just following him around New Jersey. I think it was New Jersey, just skating on the boardwalk, and just one of the coolest shot scenes I ever seen as a kid. And so then now, like about 5 years ago, maybe, no, not 5 years, 4 years ago, a person on social media, when I shared a skateboarding outreach video, tagged him in and said, hey, you should collaborate with Mike Vallely. And I'm looking at that just like if somebody said like, oh, you should be on Joe Rogan or something, like, well, whatever. But, so he actually replied to that thread on that comment, say, hey, shoot me an email. And so I did. I said, hey, man, I'm one of your many, many fans. And I don't know what you had in mind, but let me know, because I'm down to do it. And then he eventually replied and he said, hey, I want to send you some boards to give away to people in the community if you want. And I was like, sure, just send it to the station. And right up until then too, I was like, it's not gonna. When he sends the boards, then I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
But then he made a video the next week of his story about, I seen Officer Craig's videos, and I'm going to send him 10 boards to give to people in Bellevue. I'm like, uh-oh. So he's actually going to do it now. Now I got to give them away, right? And since then, that was 2018. He sent me almost like 10 boards per year to give out to kids in the community. So I've given away probably like 20 boards altogether from him, from his company, Street Plant, right? He has his own company. And that guy, man, his story is like at one point, he has his own skateboard company, pro skateboarder. He was the lead singer for a punk rock group called Black Flag, right? Where Henry Rollins started, but he took over that. Mm-hmm. He's going on tour, singing for Black Flag, a pro skateboarder running his own skateboard shop. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're doing every single thing that any kid would like be like. I'm living the dream right now. But yeah, so I got to meet him when they came up to Seattle a couple years ago on tour with Black Flag. I got to meet him in person, and it's just super nice. No interest, no benefit to him at all to collaborate with me. I mean, it's almost like, that's why I didn't believe that he was going to do it. I was like, well, who am I? It's like some random person in Bellevue, and he's like this world famous, iconic street skateboarder. And but yeah, just one of the nicest people. And I was trying to get him linked up with, because he moved from he was Long Beach. He moved from Long Beach to Des Moines, Iowa. And he before he moved, I was like, hey man, I know you had a reputation before of kind of like short temper, kind of, you know, aggro. I said, you should do some jiu-jitsu, man. And I actually on a phone text ended up making a group text with him and Henner and introducing them that way. And I was like, it's all set up, but then the pandemic happened, and then he ended up moving. But yeah, that guy is he's good people, you know. So I'm lucky to be in a position where I get to do a little collaborations like that with people like that, and it's just so awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Somebody you looked up to, and then it comes full circle.
Yeah, it's like if you told my 10-year-old self, like, hey, you can give away Mike Vallidy's pro skateboards, okay? It's like I would not believe that. Like,
it's crazy how things like that happen, and you don't even expect it sometimes, right? It's just like you literally were just on Instagram, and like someone was like, hey, and then boom, things happen like that. Yeah, it's kind of like how we feel with like our podcast,
like talking to Roy Dean.
Yeah, like we talked to Roy Dean. We talked to like some people that I followed in the fitness industry that are now in the jiu-jitsu industry, and I'm like, holy crap, I've followed you since like 2014, and I'm literally having a conversation with you. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy how the things in your life that you don't expect to connect to other people, you're like, oh, this is amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, you never know. I mean, the last thing I would expect to be doing as a officer is using skateboarding to connect with the community. I mean, I tell my parents all the time, like, lucky thing you guys kept encouraging me, and they didn't really encourage me. They just kept, they were supportive of me doing it as an activity. And I mean, I never would envision that I would be able to use that as a way to connect, you know, with the community. Just like jiu-jitsu, same thing. I mean, besides the art itself, I get to use it as a method to connect with the community. We do self-defense classes. I got to teach at a domestic violence shelter and Boys and Girls Club, Salvation Army, YMCA. So besides the technique and the physical applicability, I get to use the art as a vehicle to connect, which is
good bridge.
Yeah, it's you know, it's just so cool when you can fully I guess use the art like that in that way. And to me, anyway.
Yeah. So how did the whole, because obviously you want community outreach, but I feel like you have like a better grasp of it from like your social media presence, and just hearing you talk about it, I feel like you do like a lot of good stuff. Like, was that your mindset starting off as a police officer, or did it kind of like develop over time?
I'll give my parents credit for that one. From as long as I can remember, they were always, if you ever go to Oahu or talk to people who are born and raised in Hawaii, they have this phrase called the Aloha spirit, which is basically like a phrase that means exhibiting goodwill to people who are not your family and not even your friends necessarily. Just the idea that, you know, to have an open heart, open mind, and almost every single day I would have an example from watching my parents do that. And all the way up until now, there's a guy a former coworker of mine who died a few years ago from brain cancer, and his family's wish was to do go to Hawaii on a vacation, go to Oahu, set up in a resort. So some family friends set up a GoFundMe. They easily attained the dollar amount that the family member or the friend was trying to have for them to fund that. And then I was like, where are you guys going? And he goes, Oahu. I was like, oh. So I called my mom. I was like, hey, I don't have a friend of mine. He's coming to the islands to visit. And before I even said what the circumstance was, you know, this is going to be probably his last trip with his family ever because of cancer. She was like, oh, does he need a ride from the airport? Like, without even finishing that, you know, and they actually ended up giving him a ride to the airport, him and his family with my dad, to their hotel. And then they took him back to the airport at the end of the trip. And I mean, I can say story after story about them. And so that was always kind of ingrained in me. And the standard they set is so high that there's no way I'm going to get to it. But there's a family friend, not a family friend, I'm sorry. There's a huge family in our community that reminds me of my dad's family, because they have a large number of brothers and sisters. The Hermosillo family. And one of the sisters I knew the brothers from when they were middle school. They're about early 20s right now. And the sister ended up going to Oahu about 3 years ago with a girlfriend of hers to vacation. And they were staying at a place in the island that is not like the best might have a little reputation. I won't say what place that is, but the car ended up getting stolen. The rental car, it was stolen. So they called the brother who was still here, right? And the brother texted me. He's like, "Hey, my sister's car, the rental car got stolen. What should they do?" And I was like, "Well, obviously, report it." And what does the rental company say? And they say, "Well, the rental company said they can get them another car tomorrow." And it was like in the afternoon, right? Like they had no other access or to anything. I guess technically they could have probably tried to catch the bus, but anyway, so I was like, "Well, let me call my parents." And I called my mom, and I was like, "Hey, there's a friend of mine's sister is in Oahu with their friends, and their car got stolen." And then before I could even finish like the whole other set of circumstances, she's like, "Well, where are they? We can go pick them up."
That's amazing, man.
They ended up staying a night with my parents, the sister and her friend. And then my dad ended up taking them hiking somewhere the next morning. I'm like, before they got their car back, I mean, that's what they do. Every single, person and interaction that they have, they try to make it, a positive one. And I think that's where I get it from. And I didn't overtly try to share stuff that was, I wasn't trying to do positive things to showcase it. Like, I think I was trying to do it because that's how I learned what to do. And then the sharing of it on a platform was just because I think at that time it probably was 2015 was when I started. And then in the national media, there's a lot of very negative stories about law enforcement and police interactions. And at that time, I was doing a lot of the same things I was doing now. We're serving dinner at the Salvation Army, pizza at the Boys and Girls Club, skateboard camps, and all these positive things, which were in contrast to the narrative. And I was like, man, and I was trying to look like, where are the positive stories out there? I was like, there wasn't really any. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start posting stuff so my friends and my good friends back home or wherever can see that, okay, it's not just all bad stuff happening. And that's how I started doing it. I was like, well, at least some small group of people, whoever is interested, can see like, okay, there's an officer in this city that's doing stuff that's positive, and it's not negative interaction all the time. And so that's how that started. And then the novelty of the skateboarding and uniform and that kind of stuff kind of got connected to some local, I guess, news media, and then eventually some national news media. And I don't know. I was just doing it just to make my friends know, like, they had
it's not all bad.
It's not all bad. Yeah. And I don't know. I unfortunately nowadays it's if it's not seen, it didn't happen. That's what I feel like. It's like, well, clearly we don't see any good stuff, so there must be no good stuff happening. And that used to bother me. Like, personally, that used to bother me, and that's why I started it. But at this point, I can't do anything about that myself personally. I don't work I don't work in the news media network, and I don't have access to anything else besides my own platform. So all I can do is make a difference in my own community, and I guess share that stuff, and that's it.
Well, it works. People see it, right?
Yeah, I think it's been positive, and I would share all the stuff we do at community meetings before I started doing that. And every new community meeting, I'd have to repeat the same thing. They go, "What you guys doing in the community?" I would say, "Well, these are the things. We're using our property event to deliver furniture to families in transitional housing, serving dinner at the Salvation Army once a month, the teen center once a month, shop with a cop, taking kids, families that are in need, and giving them gift cards to buy stuff during Christmas." And it's like thing after thing, and everybody's response is, "Well, that's really good. That's really good. We didn't know about that." And then the next meeting I'll go to, and same thing. It's like, "Oh, that's really good. Like, we didn't know about that." And it's like, there has to be another way to showcase this somewhere on some platform, so that I don't have to keep on saying all the list of stuff we're doing, and somebody can just go to it. And that's why I started sharing stuff. I was kind of like, well, I'll use the Instagram as a portfolio, a visual portfolio to share some of the good stuff that we do. And that's it. That's how it started.
I'll tell you what, it does feel very genuine. You know what I mean? Like, looking from the outside in, because I didn't know you guys did all that stuff either. And just from seeing your Instagram, man, it feels very genuine, and it's super cool to see, especially like you said, because there's so much negativity in the news with the police force.
I feel like if it wasn't genuine, you can tell. I feel like
exactly.
People are not stupid.
Yeah.
If I was just doing it to look good for a camera or something, I think I think people will be able to tell. And I
Absolutely.
think that's even worse, right? It's even worse when it's disingenuous and it's like, oh, this person just doing something just because they think it will make them look better. I mean, yeah, I'd say that if that's the case, then don't do it at all. Just don't even do it. So,
yeah.
you know, I just come at it. I try to come at it from the right place. And I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, I'm not going to change anybody's mind, but that's not even to me what the purpose is. The purpose is just to share a piece of what we do. And that might be contrary to what other people see, but you know, I can't affect the other stuff. I can't directly do anything about anything else except for what's happening over here. So that's all I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the first time that you used skateboarding as an average? Did you play skate against a kid or something like that? And then
Are you talking about on duty?
Yeah. Like what was the first time you used skateboarding?
In the work clothes and everything. It's so weird because I was with Honolulu PD, right, for 3 years before I left there and I moved up here. And for whatever reason, it never even entered my mind to do that. I don't know why. I just never saw that it was I could use it as a way to connect with people. I just never thought of it as a thing. But when I moved up here, our city, if you didn't know, Bellevue has some world-class skate parks. There's a guy in the parks department here named Joe that he used to skate when he was a teen, late teen, early 20s. And because of his influence, we have probably a 5,000 square foot street park, 6,000 square foot street park, probably more than that, right next to a 4,000 square foot indoor skate park.
Wow.
Which has been constantly renovated. Probably one of the oldest skate parks in the country. I think it was built in 94. Wow. So way back in the day. It was renovated many times. And then we have this other one 3 miles east, a huge bowl, huge 9 foot deep, 7 to 9 foot deep bowl in the Crossroads area. And I was like, what the heck is the first time I seen it? I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how come the first thing I thought is somebody in the city has some kind of skateboarding connection. Clearly, this is not a typical.
I need to be that guy's friend.
Yeah, and then whoever that is, I got to know that person and figure out what's going on. But yeah, so I figured it was in the bowl, and we didn't have, like, back in Oahu in the 80s, there were only ditches. There was ditches and this place called Aloha Park, which was a roller skate rink that was kind of unofficially adopted by a skateboard community. And the only problem with that, it was cool, is they had like a transition to a little oververt, but it was in this area of Honolulu called Hotel Street. And Hotel Street is kind of, I would say it's comparable to, if you guys ever been to Seattle, it's comparable to Pioneer Square. And nothing wrong with Pioneer Square, but it's not a place that I would send a 10-year-old kid with a bunch of 10-year-old kids to be like, hey, why don't you guys go hang around over there for the afternoon? And hopefully nothing happens to you guys, but good luck with that. But we didn't have any skate parks, so coming here, there's this huge bowl, world-class Grindline skate. Got a shout out to Grindline, the Seattle-based skate park company that makes these unbelievable skate parks, all different around the world. And there's a kid skating in it one day, and I was by myself. It didn't have anybody else there, and he was by himself. And I think I just asked him, like, hey, can I skate? Can I try your board? And he looked at me like, okay. And then he wasn't super good either, so I was kind of like, okay, if I look stupid, he's not gonna have oh my gosh, you're terrible, because he was just starting. And I rolled a little bit. I didn't drop in at that point yet to that bowl, but yeah, and I was still not even thinking. It's been about 20 something years since I skated. At that point, it was 2015. Last time I was on a board was probably, I don't know, it was like 1990 or something like that. And so all that time passed, and I was just curious, and that was the right moment in time. And then there's a indoor skate park that has city staff, city employed staff that are probably all skaters that supervise the indoor park. And I went there, I think a few months after that, and it was almost closing, half an hour before it closed. And the guy there, his name is Akash, who I still keep in contact with. He doesn't work there anymore, but he's like, hey man, super positive. Just asked me how I was doing. He's like, hey, you want to skate? Like right off the bat, like, you want to skate? Because nobody else is there. There's like one or two other kids there. And I was like, nah, that's all right. And he goes, you sure? I was like, yeah. And then I finally was like, all right, they have a whole set. They have the boards, they have the helmets, knee pads, elbow pads, everything. So he always jokes that I hustled him because I said, yeah, I'll skate. So he got me a board and the mandatory, helmet for the indoor park. And then he started giving me the tutorial. Like, okay, so these bolts right here, stand on 1 foot here, 1 foot here, bend your knees, and just stay low and, fall on your knee pads if you fall down. I was like, okay. And then there's this about 4 foot mini ramp transition that I walked up to, and then I dropped in, and he looks at me like, oh, okay. You skated before. I was like, yeah, I skated before. He goes, how come you didn't tell me? I was like, you didn't ask me. You just assumed that I didn't. I was like, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna listen to your advice. You gotta have like good tips and everything. And so that was kind of like the funny inside joke that I tricked him into him teaching me a lesson or something, a free lesson. But and then after that, I mean, he made a post on his Instagram and tagged me in it. That's right when I first started sharing stuff, and it was such a positive post. I was like, man, this is I can use I can use skating as a way to connect with people, because I wouldn't have met him if it wasn't for it, and then he wouldn't have said that nice positive comment if it wasn't for that. And it's like that's another way to humanize us, to bridge the gap, And there's people who have had videos of officers' uniform playing football, baseball, basketball, right? Nothing wrong with those sports, but I mean, I don't know, that wasn't my thing. So I was like, oh, skating, skating is my vehicle, my literal vehicle and figurative vehicle to connect. And that's how that started. And then luckily we have the skate camps, year-round skate camps, summertime, pre-pandemic. There were about 5 to 6 camps a summer, week-long camps with about 24 kids from all over the place. And it's a blast. Like I show up in my patrol car, block the crosswalk, and then we bomb the hill that is right between the indoor park and the outdoor park. And people are walking past like, what the heck is going on over here? Some of the parents were very, they were concerned. Is everything okay? Why are you over here? And even the kids too, they're like, what's going on? It's 8 to 12, I think, or whatever the age range is basically elementary to about middle school, some high school once in a while, but mostly that age. And it was not negative, right? It was more like inquisitive, like, why are you here? It's like, oh, I'm here to skate, just like you guys. And then the funniest part was I told people the transition from that initial inquiry and vibe in the beginning to 3-4 camps in, it went from that to, if I missed a day, they were like, hey, what happened? Like, we didn't see you at the like, what were you doing? Did you have another call that and it's so cool. I mean, and I think about it in hindsight, because I was a skater too, right? And we would typically equate police to, oh, it's time to run away now. Or wherever we would skate is a trespass location. And those kids' first interaction with an officer is bombing the hill with one. I will never forget how I felt growing up. And I never had any necessarily hate for police, but I just never had any way to connect. Like there was what thing am I going to have in common with an officer? Like nothing, So when I started skating, I'm like, man, that wasn't even a possibility before, because skateboarding wasn't that old. I mean, maybe in the 70s they had the one with the converted roller skate wheels, right? They drill it onto the plywood 2x4 thing, but not how we have it as it is now. And there's like a whole generation of people who are now old, 30, 40 plus, all these different working professionals who skated when they were elementary and middle school, and once in a while some of them are cops too. So it's super cool. I don't know, when I reflect when I'm an old person retired, I'll be like, yeah, that was a neat thing I did right there.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's a great connection. That's why I was like so intrigued by it. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, he skateboards. I freaking love skateboarding, man. And like I feel like especially with the pandemic, I don't see it as much as I wish I did anymore. It's like and skateboarding is great. I think it's a fantastic sport to do too. So.
After this, you should look at the video, if you guys didn't see it, of me trying to drop in on the Vert ramp for the first time. There's a video of me. It's not there now because they renovated it, but before they renovated the indoor park, there was a 9-foot quarter pipe.
Ooh.
9-foot quarter pipe. It had about a foot of vert. So the vert meaning like from the coping corner is straight down, right? Vert, and then it transitions. And I never dropped in on a vert before. The Crossroads Bow has about a 7-foot transition, and I could do that one. And then they had the indoor park has a 6-foot one, a 4-foot one, or like 3-4-foot one. So all real mellow. I was like, man, I got to do it. I want to drop in on vert, And if you watch that video, it looks like it's looped because I slammed the same way twice in a row. It's 2 different slams. It's not the same one. It looks like if you could envision the edge or ledge of a roof, and like, or just walking off the plank, basically. Like I step off of it and then I go straight down. I miss all the whole transition and just slam almost straight into the bottom of the plywood wood composite. And then I get up and like, man, you know what, Joel, he'll never live this down, but he's on the video recording me, like, you'll be fine. I'm like, all right, I'll do it again. And then I slammed the exact same way again. And my whole left side of my body was all bruised. My hip had like a softball size welt on it. And I got a lot of flexibility and a lot of discretion, right, to do my position and do the outreach. So the last thing I ever wanted to do was call in sick for work because of a thing connected to skateboarding. It's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't care if I have to just like hobble around on one leg. I'm not going to call in sick because of this. And then the unfortunate part for me was the next day, there was a Boys and Girls Club thing in the summertime called Badges for Baseball, which is an outreach that the Cal Ripken Senior Organization funds. And you basically play softball or baseball with the students. So I had to do, and the next day it was like, we have a good idea. Let's do relay races around the bases. And I'm like, no, but I did it. You know, I just sucked it up, and I actually had to go back. So I successfully, almost a year after that slam, I successfully got to drop in after some remedial coaching from the skate park guys, Josh, Joe, and Nate over there. I mean, they're so positive about it, and I wouldn't be able to live it down if I didn't try again. You know, my body had to heal first, and my mind had to be in the right space to attempt that again. But I think the initial slam that got reposted on like Thrasher Magazine's Instagram. Thrasher Magazine, if you don't know, Thrasher Magazine is like the equivalent of skateboarding to what People Magazine is to the normal general population. And
yeah,
that I forget how many hundreds of thousands of views that got, but I mean, I don't know. They told me right after I did, like, bro, if we post this is going to go more viral than if you had successfully did it. Like, I'm sure it will. And sure enough, you know, it did. But yeah, that's my one kind of neat little, not directly work related, but still work related story that I can tell people. Like, I dropped in on the Vert in uniform for the first time. I've never seen anybody else do it. So if anybody else does it after me, they'll be the second.
So what's your jiu-jitsu game? Because you mentioned earlier that you're a little bit of a smaller guy. What do you feel like your jiu-jitsu game is?
Well, I'm a gi person. I mean, like I said, luckily, like, it's such a blessing to be able to train with Nathan now whenever I can. You know, Nathan Orchard's in our city, 10 Planet Seattle. And I mean, you know, it's hot, world-class competitor, right, almost not walking distance, but a mile and a half from the station. And we've had him by our station, you know, to help teach my coworkers, and it's just amazing that we have him now as a resource. But he was why I started doing no gi, because before I'll do no gi open mat with my gi. Like, I'll just show up with my gi, and then people will be like, I'll try not to grab. I was like, no, grab whatever. Just I'm wearing it, so use it. You know, choke me with my collar, whatever. But I just was so used to gi stuff that I didn't have any push to do no gi until he showed up. I was like, all right, now I gotta, if I don't learn from him, then there's no other person I'm gonna learn from, because nobody else is probably gonna show up in our backyard and be that kind of caliber, right? But still, I mean, I'm still a gi person. I like chokes, like collar chokes, baseball. The baseball choke is kind of what I had developed on my own from watching YouTube videos. And then kind of developed into my go-to move due to my crappy open guard, and it works out great, right? Because that's the bait of it is, I'll pass the guard that way and then turn the other way to do the
gotcha
strangle. Yeah, that's my, I kind of way too much reliance on it though, right? Because you take off the gi, then you can't do any of that. I try to develop like the no gi baseball choke too, right? Because I have to, like, there has to be an equivalent of this in no gi, because that's my only hope, you know. So I watch some of the guys do the no gi stuff, and it's a little bit hard on the you have to have your wrist in a certain angle and your fingers configured in a certain way to get the same compression. But you know, that's kind of like my thing. So cross chokes, collar chokes, no gi baseball chokes, Yeah, not too much. I'm not super flexible. I don't have like
Me
good
neither.
That's my own choice, right? Like I could be flexible if I invested time in it, but I just choose to. I just don't. So that's my result. But yeah, I like making people make the mistake of doing something and then trying to catch them in the transition, which
So
is
do you
not
feel
really.
like? Sorry, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
No, it's not really a point friendly approach, right? When you do that, so counterattacking is, I mean, you're gonna lose most of the point matches if you think like that, because or many of them, because you're reacting to the other person, right? They're initiating something and trying to catch them. So if they did a takedown and I don't get the submission off of their takedown attempt, I'm down, right? I'm down points now, and so I don't know. I think that suited my age, it suited my size. If I was doing like open mat with other people who were way bigger, and I just really connected with the idea of counterattacking, and I think that fit in well with the brothers' philosophy. Pedro Sar, if you've never been to Pedro Sar's seminar, he'll constantly talk about jiu-jitsu. He'll say even like jiu-jitsu is only counterattacks. Like that's it. Like there's nothing else. And I was trying to think like, how is that even possible if you only have counterattacks? But I mean, the mindset is like, well, the other person moves first. That's better because then you get to see what they have. Like you show, they're showing you their cards already. You know what's going to happen, and it's completely opposite of like some other people's mindset, right? But that's why I like jiu-jitsu, is because you don't have to have it just one way, right? You can have the attack way, and then you go, no, counterattack, and they're both right. Yeah.
So do you feel like gi or no gi translates more into your occupation?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think it just depends. It depends on the situation. There's funny stories that we have that I could share. Not every story is going to be like PG or podcast friendly, but sometimes we have to control people that don't have clothes on.
Yeah. That's the first thing that popped in my. I wasn't gonna say anything. I was like, a butt naked guy running down the street. Sometimes that's gonna be considered no-gi.
that's pretty much no-gi right there. Or is it though? Because I have clothing. And that's kind of like the way I approach it. Like, I'm never gonna be nude trying to control somebody. Hopefully, and if that happens, it's probably not gonna be on duty. But if I am controlling somebody, I'm gonna have clothes. And if I have clothes, it's going to be grabbable, right? So I should know what that is, what's possible. I should know, right? And I'm never going to be able to doff my gear. Be like, hang on, you guys, I'm gonna
let me get this vest off.
You're naked, I'm naked. We're doing this.
I got my rash guard underneath, but hold on, so I can take all this stuff off. But I can do that, right? But so that's, I mean, clearly when you have the inability to control somebody with clothing, I mean, you have to have no-gi principles and concepts and grips, right? And however, if there was going to be a climate that is favorable to gi, it'll be up here. I mean, that's why I tell people is like in Hawaii, gi is, I don't want to say it's not applicable, but you fight somebody in Hawaii, first of all, they don't even have a long sleeve anything. It's a t-shirt and they have board shorts on and slippers. And when they fight you, they're gonna take off their shirt. Like I guarantee you, it's like if the shirt's coming off, it's like I have a friend who a retired former coworker who retired named Young Lee, he's a Korean American, but he grew up in Texas. He goes, well, if the cowboy hat comes off, it's going down. It's the same thing, right? If the t-shirt comes off, there's gonna be some violence happening right here. So yeah, it's before moving up here, I was like, well, how can gi translate to, a street application, because nobody has long sleeve anything. Like maybe in December when it's like 60 something degrees on Oahu, but I mean, besides that, it's you don't have the even capability to grab a thing that's thick enough to replicate a collar. But up here is, I mean, that's like 9 months out of the year, right? So I don't know. I think it's good to feel nobody's going to put you in a spider guard, lasso guard, I don't think, in a fight. But I feel like from a defensive standpoint, it's good to know how clothing can control you, how manipulating clothing and grips can be used to control you. So from a defensive standpoint, it's not going to be a surprise if somebody grabs onto your jacket or collar or whatever and pulls you, and you'll be like, wait a minute, like you're not supposed to be able to control me from this far away. It's not. I think that piece is from the defensive aspect, it's a good thing to experience, at least a little bit. So I don't know. I can't. That was a politician answer for that question. I can see. There's both examples. I had to control people that had clothes on, control people that didn't have any clothes. So I think, but I always have. So at the end, I feel like, I have to have a little bit of exposure to both of those.
No, yeah, I think it's a great answer, right? And that's kind of where I was going in my head. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's going to say it depends on the situation, and like we all instantly thought of like a naked dude, like this. I didn't think about it. That you brought up a great point. I didn't think about you'll always be wearing clothes in most situations, right? So the defense of that, like that's a good point. Like I didn't even think about that. So the kind of like showing up at 10th Planet in a gi is actually pretty smart.
It's smart. Yeah, it's smart, and also probably the worst case scenario, because if you have a gi person that does no gi at 10th Planet, then they're gonna know how to strangle you, and with and without the collar, with and without the gi, right? Then you're screwed over twice as much. But yeah, no, I didn't ask Nate about that yet. But there's an inside joke where we did a little skit with a student here who graduated from high school in our city, who did Jiu Jitsu when he was in middle school, just for a couple years, but they're still better than most of the population, right? And I took him to Nate's gym one time, and as a joke, I was like, hey, what'd be funny is if I gave him this gi that we had from our school, and I told him from a different jiu-jitsu school, and I told him you should show up wearing that as a skit and at the school, and everybody like look at you like you're out of your mind, or point to the logo of the gym and be like, hey, this is not the right place for that. And anyway, it's kind of a funny idea. And there's one, you'll see some of the other ones too, where I do a skit. I shouldn't say this right now because I didn't share it yet, but I have a black gi, or a dark colored gi, dark blue black gi, that I put underneath this and start talking about, hey, a lot of common questions that have been asked of me connected to my uniform and my equipment. So I'm going to talk about it. And we'll start off with my belt, and I go through my belt, take off my belt. It's like, so underneath my belt, I unzip it and I take off my top. It's a jumpsuit, right? And then I have my gi underneath. I take my vest off. There's a gi, and I'm like, not everybody has a gi under their uniform, you guys. But I do. I have my belt already tied, underneath, and then I take off my pants, and I have my gi pants underneath that. And,
that's great.
I don't know. I just think probably other people are like, oh, this is so stupid, but I think it's funny. I don't know. I just think the jiu-jitsu people will get the inside joke, and everybody else. Some people were like, hey, isn't that hot during the summertime when you wear your gi under your uniform? And
oh my God,
I can't, I don't know how to answer. Like, it's like, oh, they thought it was for real. It's like, oh, no.
That's right. But, so what would your one piece of advice be for a brand new white belt coming to start jiu-jitsu?
Just manage the expectation, the expectation of the reality that you're not going to be good right away. I think that's a very realistic, not to expect too much. And yeah, presuming the vibe of the gym is good and positive, everything. I mean, just especially in this day and age where we have everything immeditely, right? It's like, oh, if I want this product on Amazon, I can have it delivered to me today. If I click this button, I can instantly download something right now. And especially, I think younger kids, right, if that's what they grew up on, it's kind of like, well, when am I going to get good at jiu-jitsu? It's like, well, check back in 2 or 3 months, like 2 or 3 months, or whatever it is, longer than that, right? When am I going to start tapping people? It's like, might be a couple years. It's like, what?
Yeah, true.
I think that's a big surprise to some people. Like, oh, I can't get my, because partly due to the other martial arts, right? To be honest, the ones that don't really have any kind of checks and balances with the validity of the whatever they have, the belt system or whatever, right? When they have kids that's black belts, it gives the impression like, well, this person has a black belt, and clearly, even though I don't have training, I feel like I could kick their butt. But and then you go to jiu-jitsu, it's like, that's not like that. And so yeah, as long as they have the expectation that the process to get good takes super long, like you guys know. And I think if you start off with that in mind, and I guess depending on what the person's goal is too, because they might want to be good as soon as they could, because they want to compete or something, and that's fine. But I guess it depends on, before I give that advice, I would say, what is that person's goal? I think that's a good counter question, or to before I answer, oh, this is what my advice would be. Because if their goal is, I want to compete at the highest level as soon as I can, then I was like, well, you got to suck it up and just, train all the time then. And if the goal is, well, I want to do this until this is going to be my tennis, this is going to be my golf, So I want to be able to do this into my 50s, 60s. And well, then the approach would be different. I don't think it would be, you can't, you have to be customized to each individual person's reason for why they are training in the first place, right? I feel like.
Well, that's a great answer. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today, Craig. I know you're a busy man. John, you got anything else?
No, man, those were some good stories.
Yeah.
I like the skateboard stories. Me and my daughter got back into it while we were in San Diego because everybody's still skateboarding there, so it was just fun to talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a different a vibe of a podcast for this one. It's a whole lot of fun. I appreciate it, man. This was a good one to come back to. We haven't interviewed anyone in a while, so it's a great one to come back and interview, man. So greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Anytime you guys come through here, let me know in advance if we can do a open mat in our station here. I think people like just for the novelty of it, say, "Oh, where did you train today?" "Oh, the police station." Like, what?
Yeah,
you know? It's like, yeah. I take full advantage of that. Was like, hey, you guys want to come roll at the station? And it's a neat. I like I said, it's an outreach. You know, it's a way to connect with the community, build relationships, and you know, there's not a higher level of trust that you can have than basically putting the safety of your limbs in another person's hands, literally, right? And it's just, there's something about that aspect of the art that makes it extremely, it kind of compresses the amount of time before you become tight with another person, right? It's like, oh, we're like brothers now. You could have literally killed me or broke my arm, but you didn't. It's like, oh, good. It's amazing.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Craig. Appreciate it so much. Thank you guys for watching at home and listening if you're driving, wherever you're at. So remember, guys, have a good day, and no oil checks here.
None.
Close.